Hi there, thank you for joining me to chat about this latest episode of 90 Day Fiancé. We're on season 10, episode 9. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also let me know your thoughts in the comments. So in this episode, we meet a new couple. We meet Sam, and he looks pretty young. I think he's around 30. And he is currently sleeping in his car because he says his job is about an hour away, one way. So he's currently sleeping in his car. He says he doesn't have a whole lot of options because of his past. He says that when he was 15, he got addicted to opiates. And then he says that he got clean when he was around 22. He also mentioned that he has relapsed a few times. So really, he hasn't been fully clean the whole time since he was 22. So I thought that was kind of contradictory. But he says that it's important for him to stay clean since his fiancé is coming. So his fiancé is Citra. She is 26 and she's from West Java, Indonesia. And they met 3 years ago on a dating app when she reached out to him. And he says that after a year, he told her everything about his past. And then they met after 2 years of their initial meeting. So when he went to meet her, he proposed, even though he didn't have a ring. I was just like, this is so silly. Why not wait until you can afford to give her a ring to propose? I just didn't understand what the rush was. He doesn't really have a whole lot to offer her. So why not just wait to get stable? Anyway, Citra has 2 sisters, and she asked them what they think of American men or something like that. And she says that they're tall and look like Ryan Gosling. And they mentioned about drinking a lot of soda and alcohol. That was kind of funny. So they are Muslim, and it was funny that her sisters wear their headdress, but she didn't. And I don't think she mentioned the reason that I could recall. But I just wondered why she wasn't wearing hers. We did see in one scene when she was, I think she was doing some prayer or something like that, that she had a headdress on, but head covering. But when she was outside, and even the picture, she was never wearing her headdress. So I don't know why that would be. Anyway, she says Sam will have to convert to Islam if they want to get married. And she says that and we know that she's supposed to arrive in 4 days. Sam currently lives with his dad, who is not religious at all, but he is a believer in aliens. Sam is, contrary to Citra, is not religious at all just because of how he grew up. He did mention that his mom was very religious though, but he grew up with his dad. And he hopes that he can live up to the Islamic beliefs. So Citra's dad wants them to get married right away because he's concerned about them possibly sinning, aka premarital sex. And so he wants that to happen as soon as possible. And so the dad is laying down the law. Citra says that they need to get married within 2 weeks of her arriving. So she will have to go back if things doesn't work out the way her dad has mandated it. So the marriage and the conversion. So he has a lot on his shoulders right now. I don't know how he's going to afford, a ring, marriage, doing all that when he lives with his dad and he's living in his car. He can't afford to, house himself when he's away for work. So it should be interesting to see how this develops. It doesn't seem to me that he is ready for this huge level of commitment that's going. So we see it's the next day, and Nikki and Devin are still in Memphis. They stayed in Memphis overnight because it's a 2-hour drive to Cersei. And so we see where they're going to head to their home. So Nick is worried about living with the parents, which Devin understands. She feels like if it were the other way around, she would be feeling nervous as well. So they cross the Mississippi into Arkansas. When they arrive to the parents' house, Nick is really impressed. He says that the house is so big and that in Korea, most people live in apartments. So he was really impressed. He meets Devin's sister, Taylor, and brother, Caden. So he's living with the 2 siblings, the parents, and then him and Devin. So he was kind of surprised that there were so many people in the house. I guess more people than he thought. And So he got a tour of the house and where he'd be sleeping. And the next morning, Devin takes him to walk around Cersei. She takes him down to Art Alley and she shows him some graffiti that she did a long time ago, which was really nice. I didn't know she was artistic. That good of an artist. But it was a skateboarder. It was really cute. And they see a building, one of the municipal buildings that said White County. And so he asked why it was called that. And she says, well, it doesn't have anything to do with the skin color. And he says, well, there must be a reason. So he was kind of like reading into it, saying White County as something else. And it could potentially be, but it could have been named after a person. So she asked why it was named. He asked why it was named that. And she says she doesn't know, but maybe that's something he could research. So he needs to go look it up himself if he wants the history on that. So then the next day is Sunday. No, when they were walking around Cersei, I think it was Sunday, and she says that, everybody's in church, so pretty much the place is deserted. It's a really religious community. Devin goes on to say that the population is mostly white, and they're not very tolerant of people who are not like them. And I was like, oh boy, prayers up for Devin. Prayers up for Nick. They also walked by a statue of a Confederate soldier, and so he was reading the plaque that was on there and alluded to the fact that this Confederate soldier was fighting to keep slavery going. And he was kind of flabbergasted by this. He was like, then he stopped and he was like, okay. And then he was like, that's interesting. I got the impression that he was trying to wrap his mind around why a person who was pro-oppression would be immortalized in a statue, but he didn't really want to say anything, and I don't understand it either, but there it goes. They have this guy there in the town center. Devin did say that the town folks weren't very tolerant of others, so I guess that's in line with that. He says he's not sure he'll feel welcome there in Cersei because of the Asian hate that arose around the time that COVID started. But I think he should be fine because, it's not like he just moved there on his own, unaccompanied or without having any roots in the community. So he's connected to Devin's family. So fingers crossed that he'll be okay. So we see where they are having the barbecue that we saw in the preview last week. Anyway, before that, the parents said that, he seems to be doing good living in the house. He cleans up after himself, and he's very helpful. So then we see where they're having this barbecue. A couple who's a friend of Devin's parents were coming by, and they were going to do a fish fry. So this is where this scene went down, where the lady, I don't remember what her name was, asked Nick what Korean people think of Americans. And he said that something about greasy food and being fat. And then that was when he called her piggy and was trying to feel her belly roll at the table. And everybody was just like looking. And I know he says that, it was a nickname for her. But the way he's doing it, I just don't feel like that's the case. He could have called, if you're touching on somebody's belly fat in public and saying, oh, look at you, that you're fat. That's not cute. And so the parents were just looking, everybody's just looking, but the parents have better self-control than me, because if it were my child, this would not go unpunished. I would be saying something right then and there like, you will not talk to her this way. And so we see where after everything is over, the dad said since they cooked, everybody else has to clean up. So they're cleaning up and everybody brought the stuff inside. And so the couple who came over, she was like, what was that? And so the dad says that he will have to talk to Nick about how he needs to treat his daughter. They have some conversations to be had. So hopefully, this is a scene that was edited to create this effect, because that was not very nice. And also, this is not really the type of image that we've seen with Nick this whole time throughout the prior episodes. He seemed like a very respectful guy. So it's just weird to see him do this. But we do see him, you know, touching her belly and trying to feel her rolls or something, just to demonstrate that she is fat. So he tries to clean it up. She says that you're supposed to say something nice, and he says you're cute, and she said it was too late. So, and she looked really embarrassed. I could see she could probably cry, because, you know, she's kind of emotional too. So I felt really, really bad for her. That was a very, very embarrassing scene. So hopefully that the parents will put their foot down and say, look, you will not do this. So Sophie and Rob are meeting up to go bowling with Ty and Tarai. It seems like all Rob's friends have a T name. So she's the only girl going to the bowling alley in the group. And I was like, that's kind of odd. Could they not bring a girlfriend along, or his sister? But she was the only girl. And then he made some comment about her butt jiggling when she released the ball. And I'm like, dude, please, you have no place to talk right now. So when they were sitting down, Ty had asked her how things were going. And she's like, yeah, you know, I have no friends or family here. It's kind of lonely, blah, blah, blah. Then Tarai jumps in to ask about checking people's phones. Is that what we're doing now, checking people's phones? So Sophie goes ahead to give him the whole story, the play-by-play of what happened. And what do you know? Rob didn't tell his homies the whole story. He he basically lied by omission and didn't admit to the fact that he was on Snapchat viewing nude photos and asking for stuff and saying things back. And so he's like, well, I don't have to tell them every single detail. Yeah, you do. Because if you're trying to say this thing went down, and now this is going to paint Sophie as being, you know, controlling and, you know, evil and jealous. Yeah, you're kind of changing the narrative here when you're not telling the truth. So Tarai was like, you know, he kind of gave him a little bit of a hard time for not telling the truth. Like, that's not what you told us, man. So when Sophie told him everything, then after that, Tarai said, you know, it's still not good to check phones. And Sophie admitted that, yeah, it's not. But, you know, after he did that, it's kind of hard to not feel like she needs to check, or whatever she said. Anyway, Ty didn't really say a whole lot as far as, you know, his boy lying by omission. But he did give Sophie props for hanging in there and giving Rob a second chance. And I'm like, why does she need to have props for doing that? She should have left him. But I feel like they both know that he's not boyfriend material. But I feel like birds of a feather flock together. So maybe they don't know any better if they're, you know, kind of like him anyway. So anyway, later on in the episode, we see where Sophie decides that she calls her friend Maya to tell about what's happened. She's repeating this online cheating thing or whatever. And they go back to the conversation of whether he told Rob that she was bi, and she didn't. And so in this episode, she decides that now is the time to tell him. So they're getting ready to go out, and Rob says they're going to go choose rings. They're going to choose their wedding bands. And so they were talking for a little bit, and she was like, you know, he mentioned there being a budget, and she was asking like, how much, you know, $5,000. He was like, no, did anything around here suggest I have money like that? So I don't know how much he plans to spend on wedding rings, but if it's less than $5,000, I don't know what that ring would look like, because, you know, we're in California. California is very, very, very expensive. But anyway, he says that they'll go look, and, you know, she sees one that she likes to let him know, and they'll see what they can work out. And she mentioned that she wanted rose gold. So anyway, after that, she told him that she had something to tell him, and then she's like, what is it? She's like, I'm having a panic attack. I'm feeling anxious or whatever. And so she went outside, and he's just sitting there looking, and he's like, what's going on? Do you want me to come out there or whatever? So he comes outside, and she's like sniffling or crying. I don't know. I don't recall seeing any tears, but maybe I didn't have my glasses on. And so she's like, oh, I'm having a panic attack. I don't know why I'm so anxious. I have something to tell you. It's not anything bad. I'm not being disloyal. I'm still loyal or whatever. And so after dragging it out for 2 years, she finally tells him that she's bi. She's like, oh, I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to say it twice. I'm going to tell you quick, but I'm not going to say it twice. I'm bi. And he's like, what? You're bisexual? And she's like, yeah. And then we hear the music, the melody to a preview to a meltdown or something. But he's just like looking. And you could see like the clockworks, you know, tick, 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 tick. The wheels turning in his head because he's like, okay, so you're bi. You're on this dating app looking for girlfriends. Huh. This is interesting. So I feel like, you know, he's going to blow up. And I feel like it would be well in his rights to kind of blow up because now that you're telling me this and the fact that you were on this dating app, how do I know that there wasn't really something else going on here when you're just now revealing to me that you're bi? You made it seem like it was on there, you know, you were on this app for completely platonic reasons, but there could have been more to that. And I feel like might not be the best way to think about it, but I could see that happening, and I feel like that's a human response. But she should have told him before they became boyfriend and girlfriend, or whenever he asked, like, there's something I need to tell you, and maybe this will change your mind about wanting to be my boyfriend, but here it goes. She should have disclosed this a long, long time ago. She has said in the episode that so much has been going on, she didn't get a chance to tell him. But you've been here for you had time before this whole cheating thing happened that you could have said it. And you told him in like, gee, I'm bi. It took like 2 seconds to say. And you didn't tell him this whole time you were here and this whole time that you were dating. You haven't said anything. So yeah, it's not going to be good, but we'll see what happens next week as far as the conversation, because their segment ended after he said, so you're bisexual, and then they're looking and the music is playing. And so we don't know what his response is going to be after that. So we'll see that next week.